Trista, my video seems to be causing my whole thing to shut down. So I don't know if I'll be able to use video for this round. It's just it's causing some major delays on my side, so I apologize for that.
Okay, thanks for letting me know, Member Dykstra. You can keep your video off. We'll just have to, if you do want to speak, we'll make sure that the chair goes to you to see if there's any questions. All right.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the March 10th, 2022 hearing of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is David Kendrick and I am the chair today. Committee members, staff, and applicants are attending this electronic hearing remotely. This hearing is being held remotely and is being live streamed and recorded. Please be advised that public hearings form part of the public record and the words, names, or images of those participating will be recorded and posted online. Before we proceed, I would like to ask the Secretary Treasurer to confirm attendance of the committee members by roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, I'll be reading your names out loud. Chair Kendrick.
Present.
Member Allison.
Present.
Member Ash is not present. Member Dykstra.
Present.
Thank you. Member Hamilton.
Present.
Thank you. Member Meads.
Present.
Thank you. And Member Smith.
I'm present.
Thank you, Chair. We have quorum.
Thank you. Before I outline the hearing format, I wanted to make a note that the agenda for this hearing has been posted online at guelph.ca/COFA. If you want to follow along, please feel free to access it now. I will remind all committee members and staff participating in the hearing to please mute your microphones when not in use to reduce feedback. Applicants will be unmuted when their application is called by the Secretary Treasurer. I also like to share the hearing format we will be using to navigate through each application. Each application will be called by the Secretary Treasurer, and the applicant will be given an opportunity to add anything further to the application to a maximum of 10 minutes. If you are an applicant and have nothing to add further, then you can simply say so. The committee will then be able to ask questions to the applicant or staff. After that, we will hear from members of the public who wish to comment on the application. Please note that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Please avoid repeating concerns already stated by others and focus on adding new information. Comments are limited to 10 minutes or less. Any members of the public who have submitted a request to speak prior to the hearing will be the first invited to provide comments via telephone. I've confirmed with the Secretary Treasurer that we have received delegation requests in advance of today's hearing. If you wish to speak to an application and have not submitted a request in advance of the hearing, you will still be given an opportunity to speak by calling 519-822-1260, extension 2524, and you will receive instruction on how to participate. For each application, following the committee members' questions to the applicant or staff and any delegations that have registered in advance, we will take a brief 3-minute break to display the call-in number for any residents wishing to call in. Once all the comments from the public have been heard, the applicant or staff will be given the opportunity to respond to comments. Finally, I'll turn to the committee for a motion and deliberation as well as a vote on the application. As this hearing is being held remotely, there are some procedural changes regarding how the committee will vote. When the committee is making a decision on an application, I will be asking the Secretary Treasurer to conduct the vote by roll call. The Secretary Treasurer will call each of the members' name, and each member will respond if they are in favor or opposed to the motion, and I will announce the result of the vote. If you wish to receive a copy of the decision of an application, including information about the appeal procedure, you must submit a request. A written request can be made by contacting staff using the contact information shown on the screen. To receive a copy of the decision, please email cofa@guelph.ca with your name and file number you're interested in. Please note the owners and applicants automatically receive a copy of the decision. If there are any technical issues during the hearing and quorum is lost, the hearing will be recessed. If the technical issues cannot be resolved or quorum cannot be obtained, applications will not be heard by the committee and will be deferred to a later hearing date. I'll ask Member Allison to provide the First Nations acknowledgement, please.
Thank you. As we gather, we are reminded that Guelph is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a city, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work. Today, we acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabe peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting.
Committee members, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? If so, please raise your hand. I see none. Stephen, are you okay?
Yeah, I don't have any pecuniary interest in any of the
Thank you.
files.
Approval of the minutes. Can I get a member to move in a second approval of the minutes from the previous hearing of January 13th, 2022? If so, please raise your hand. Moved by Member Mead. Seconder, please. There we go. Member Smith, thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hands. Approved. I've confirmed with the Secretary Treasurer that we have received a deferral request. Oh, Stephen, you're okay with the minutes?
Yes, sorry.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay. He's in favor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that we have received a deferral request. I can confirm that engineering, planning, and building staff are now recommending deferral of file B-6/22 for 43 Ridgeway Avenue due to existing servicing information that recently came to the city's attention. Staff need additional time to determine if the retained lot can be serviced by municipal sanitary and water main. The agent has been advised and is in agreement with the deferral request or the recommendation to defer. Correspondence with concerns about the application has also been received from H. Danyeki, a resident on Ridgeway Avenue, and copies of this correspondence has been circulated to the committee member, staff, and the applicant. I believe the agent for the applicant, Jeff Buseman, is in attendance should the committee require any clarification regarding the deferral, but I'll turn it over to the chair for the deferral motion on this application.
Can I get members to move and second the deferral of this application, please? Moved by Member Mead, thank you. Seconder? Seconded by Member Allison, thank you. Turn it over to the Secretary Treasurer to do a roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Committee members, I'll be reading your names out loud. Please indicate if you're in favor or opposed to the deferral recommendation. Chair Kendrick.
In favor.
Member Allison.
In favor?
Member Dykstra.
Favor.
Thank you. Member Hamilton.
In favor.
Member Meads.
In favor.
And Member Smith.
In favor.
That's unanimous, Chair.
That's carried. For those watching, file B-6/22 for 43 Ridgeway Avenue has been deferred, and the decision will be made at a future hearing. I'll now turn it over to the Secretary Treasurer to announce the first application.
Thank you, Chair. The first application is files B-5/22 and A-9/22. Consent to create new lot and related variance to permit reduced lot frontage for proposed severed lot at 26 Forest Street. I'll also note for the committee members as well as those attending that we did receive correspondence after the comment deadline from R. Perry with concerns about the application. We also received correspondence including drawings from J. Milligan regarding the application as well. And that correspondence has been circulated to the committee members, the applicant and staff.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if the applicant is present. If so, can you please state your name and your relationship to the application? We're expecting somebody. I can.
Sorry, takes a few minutes to click on and be accepted in. This is Jeff Buseman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, committee members. I am Jeff Buseman with Van Herten Surveying. I'm representing the application.
Okay. Are we expecting a second one or just Jeff at this time? Just Jeff. Okay. Okay. Do you wish to speak to the application, Mr. Buseman?
Yes, I do. This application is for an infill development at 26 Forest. It's for a severance to create a lot for a single family dwelling and to allow for a minor variance of 13 meters versus 15 meters for lot width. I want to start by saying that planning staff is strongly endorsing this application for all the right reasons. When I look at their report, they mention how it meets the objectives for residential designation in section 9.3. The application, and they consider a range of housing types, affordabilities, and density. There's been an emphasis in this review for compatibility for infill and intensification of section 9.3F. Compatibility and preservation of the general character of the established neighborhoods has been a key in this review. Staff also looked at section 9.311 to review the development criteria, and the staff found that this proposal is consistent and meets all criteria indicating building form, scale, height, setbacks, massing, appearance, parking layout, and siting. Section 3.7 of the official plan encourages new low-density residential development like this in older established areas of the city, provided that it is compatible. Staff even looked at the definition of compatible and said that it must be similar and coexist without an unacceptable adverse impact. In staff's review, they have considered compatibility with significance, and they've come to the conclusion that this application is compatible. There have been many comments from the neighbors and the Old University Neighborhood Association not in support of the application for a variety of reasons. I could be as bold as saying I think many of the comments are kind of like not in my backyard type of comments. Obstruction of view, this is a country within the city, possibility of traffic problems are some of the comments. Yes, I agree that change is a challenge and infill developments are a challenge and developers are working hard to make things fit, but it's also an opportunity to embrace that challenge. There is a pressing demand for housing in our society, in all kinds of it. We see it in Guelph, Ontario, Canada. This has become extremely obvious in the last few years in housing prices and high rents. The province has seen this need and has made it clear that new housing and a variety of opportunities and intensification is a high priority. Guelph has responded with planning policies and their official plan to support this policy of infill intensification. Find that planning staff work with the opportunities for intensification, but they also keep the importance of compatibility. I feel the time has come for all of us, every neighborhood, to figure out how we're going to create more housing. We have to acknowledge that we live in the city and that you will expect new homes in open spots, or maybe small homes being removed on large lots and be torn down and 2 new houses created. New development has to fit, and we respect the challenges that this causes to the neighborhood. I could sympathize with the neighborhood objections if we were proposing an apartment building or knocking down the existing house and putting in 4 or 5 townhouse units. That's a big change. In this case, however, we're proposing a single-family dwelling like others in the neighborhood. The proposed development clearly fits, and planning staff have made that clear. There have been a number of infill developments in the old university neighborhood area over the last number of years, and our firm has been part of those projects. I think of a few. I think of one on Yonge Street, where we had a 13.4 meter wide lot and a 14 meter wide lot with 450 square meters. Rodney and Dean, the lots were a little wider at 18 and 16 meters, but the size was the same at 460 and 450 square meters each. On Dean, there was a development with 15 and 16 meter wide lots, with lots being 500 and 560 square meters. This proposal is for 13 meters wide, so it's very similar to the one on Yonge Street. But what's nice about this proposal is the resultant parcel is large, not at 650 square meters. That's bigger than any of those other 3 developments and 6 lots that I've mentioned above. The one concern affecting the neighborhood comments that deserves attention are the trees. Saving the trees is important to our client Mezcon. Where possible, Zach wants to remove the trees within the yard, and he's thinking about moving one particular tree to a yard of a property on Water Street. Yes, the cedar hedge at the front will be removed. Some of the trees will be saved, some will be transplanted, and some will be cut down. Mezcon is committed to a tree inventory and preservation plan that will identify all these outcomes. There is a legitimate concern for the Norway Maple on the abutting property at 30 Maple, and we've been thinking about this tree, and we've asked James Dennis, an arborist from Abud & Associates, to evaluate it, and he'll be speaking after me on the details of this tree and how to save it and protect it. I was quite impressed and excited about the methods that can be used to ensure protection of trees, and he will tell us more. Mezcon is bringing forward this project, and he is working on the challenges. He has been successful on other similar sites in the old university neighborhood area. After the houses that he finished on Water Street, Forest Hill, and on Rodney, Zach says he has received positive feedback on the finished product. His plan for this house is to be either a fully net zero house or at minimum a net zero ready house. We know that the province recently released a task force report on housing affordability with 55 recommendations, and with a focus on allowing people to get more homes. Many of these recommendations dealt with how development is stifled by not having it in my backyard, and that it was a major obstacle. And these recommendations are out there to address that. Yes, I'm passionate about this positive and good infill project that is desperately needed and encouraged. We as a society need to create housing for the next generation, the newcomers and immigrants. Canadian society has responded positively to new people and making things work, and making new houses is a part of that response. I've seen it firsthand, the struggle to obtain housing. And so it's tough. It's when I get a bit frustrated. It's hard when I hear that sentiment. Not in my backyard, because I'm going to see a house where I once saw an open space with some foliage. This development fits and is the kind of development that planning policy and our society has said very clearly needs to happen in every neighborhood wherever possible. So in summary, I'd like to ask the committee for their support. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to James's presentation on the tree after me. But I'd be happy to answer any questions, Chair Kendrick.
Thank you, Mr. Boosman. A little bit of house cleaning here. I missed the important question. Did you receive the staff comments,
Yes, I did.
and were the signs posted?
Yes, they were.
Ooh, we cleared that up. Thank goodness. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Boosman? Please raise your hand. Member Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Buseman, I note on the published sketch that the driveway is on the, let's just call it the plan left side. And I'm curious if, given that that will impact the drip line of the existing neighboring tree, if there's any consideration to siting the driveway on the opposite side.
That is a good question. We are talking about which side the driveway goes on. Zach has preferred this particular side for grading drainage purposes, but I think I'd like to ask, since James is speaking after me with the impact on trees, I think he's probably the best one to answer that question.
Thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Boosman? Okay, seeing that there are none, Mr. Boosman, your associate is ready to speak.
I assume and that he'll be let in. Thank you.
Hello.
Sorry, just a minute. Do we have any questions for Mr. Boosman from the committee? No further questions. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the committee. My name is James Dennis. I'm an ISA certified arborist and the arboriculture lead at Abood and Associates Inc. We're located in Guelph, and we've supported many development applications in the city of Guelph with arboriculture, landscape architecture, and ecological studies. We plan to prepare the tree inventory and preservation plan for this project at 26 Forest Street, which will ultimately provide detailed inventory and assessments of all trees within and near the proposed development limits. This plan will provide general measures to follow tree preservation, which are both prescribed by the city through their tree technical manual and also informed by our technical expertise. As a consulting arborist, I feel that my job is to advocate for good tree care and make recommendations that support it. The clearest challenge facing me with this project is ensuring the survival and stability of the large Norway maple tree located on 30 Forest Street. I have assessed this tree twice. Once in 2018, when I measured it being 83 centimeters diameter and in fair to good condition, and then yesterday when I visited again to refresh my memory. This tree has a significant impact on the landscape and is an asset to 30 Forest Street and the neighborhood in general. Any work near the tree should be sensitive to it. In terms of the proposal before the committee, I'm confident that the tree will be given its due respect by MESCON. I've discussed the development with MESCON and with Jeff Buseman, Van Harten, and we have identified a few options available to us that will ensure the work proposed will cause as little damage to the tree as possible. They are entirely supportive of using low-impact excavation tools like AirVac, which is similar to HydroVac, but it uses air to loosen the soil instead of water, which thereby causes much less damage to roots. And this will be used to expose roots prior to any other digging for foundations or other excavation requirements. This is essential for me to understand what the actual impacts to the tree will be. We will also be, we as Abud and Associates will also be supervising and directing any root pruning required to ensure roots are not damaged, that the pruning is done to arboricultural standards, and that roots are not pruned excessively. We will also advise if any branch pruning will be necessary to accommodate the final built height of the house and how much pruning is necessary. We will also recommend post-construction care and maintenance, the most important aspect being good watering in the areas where root injury has occurred. The value of trees in urban environments increases every day. As trees grow, they give us more, and as they are removed, the remaining trees are ever more important. With this project, I understand my responsibility goes beyond providing a plan to satisfy a condition of approval. The long-term viability of this tree will require advocacy, expertise, and good judgment, all of which I'm willing, capable, and empowered to provide. Thank you.
Questions from the committee for Mr. Dennis. Member Smith.
Thank you, Chair. To follow up with my earlier question about the siting of the proposed driveway impacting the drip line of the existing tree, would it make sense from an arborist point of view to basically mirror the plan so that the driveway, the hard surface wasn't impacting the tree, given your earlier comments about it's going to need some advocacy?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Member Smith. That's a good question and a good suggestion. Looking at it on the face, I'm not sure that it's going to actually solve the problem. In looking at the design when I first saw it, I did think that the garage siding was the best option for the tree because the foundation can be dug at a shallower depth, whereas a full foundation, if it's going to have a full basement, we will have a full depth excavation. And if you move the driveway to the other side, you take that option off the table. So I think by having the garage sited where it is, and therefore the driveway sited where it is actually the most likely arrangement to result in the tree's protection, the best outcome for the tree.
Any other questions for the delegate?
I don't, Chair. I do have a question for, or
Yes.
two for staff.
Go ahead.
Through you to staff, and I'm having a little bit of connection issue. I don't know if you can hear me properly. Through you to staff, I noticed that staff is in support of the the severance at 13 meters, and I'd just like to have them speak to that, if in their professional opinion, the 13 meters is an acceptable and a good use for this this property.
Comments from staff, please.
Sure. Good afternoon.
Yes.
So through
you.
the chair to Member Smith. So the 13 meters is, in my professional opinion, does meet the 4 tests in terms of a minor variance. When looking at the lot frontages in the area, there are varying lot frontages in terms of along Forest Street. So the lot frontages in the immediate area might be more than 15 meters. However, if you go west along Forest Street, a lot of them are actually smaller than 13 meters in frontage. Looking at this, as a professional planner, I know an appropriate sized house can be placed on a lot that is 13 meters in frontage. Another important thing to note here is that the lot area is in excess of the minimum R1B requirements. It's approximately 665 square meters. So although there is a 2 meter difference between the minimum R1B requirement of 15 meters, I feel that there's still adequate room to situate a dwelling with a driveway, landscaping, and there is, in my opinion, it does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. I think this does represent good planning, and going back to the consent application, and it does meet our official plan policies for intensification and infill. And as noted in the staff report, compatible isn't necessarily the exact same. It's just development or redevelopment that can exist with the surrounding neighborhood without an acceptable adverse impact. And a single detached dwelling, a new single detached dwelling in a neighborhood of single detached dwellings is compatible. And I don't have any concerns with the 13 meters.
Thank you. Let me just follow up briefly on that. Again, I apologize. I am having a bit of connection issues. That you said that there were, and I've noticed, it appears that the 13 meters, which is about 40 feet, that there are other lots west of here. Is that what I heard you say, that are at or smaller than 13 meters?
Yes, that's correct. So if I think a good view to take would be on the public notice sketch. There's the circulation area that's shown. If you were to look at it, it shows a number of lots west of Maple Street on both the north and south side of Forest that are some are actually appear to be smaller than the 13 meters, and then even going east along they're varying sizes. So the lots, the 2 lots right next door to this property are 30 and 77. 77 is a little bit different because that's an exterior, technically an exterior yard, and the frontage would be on Talbot Street for that property. And then the lots on the opposite side of Forest Street, which are on the north side of Forest Street, directly across from this one, are all have a different zone. So they're zoned R1A. So by default, they would be required to have a minimum of 18 meters.
Thank you. And I guess the last question is in terms of the front yard setback. It appears from the published sketch that it steps back from the existing house that this is to be severed from, and is at or about the same front yard setback as to the dwelling to the left. Am I reading that correctly? So the front yard setbacks are essentially in agreement with the existing residences.
Through the chair to Member Smith, that's correct. What's proposed here is, I believe on the sketch, it looks to be about 11 meters of a front yard setback, which looks like a consistent setback to the existing dwelling at 26 and also number 30.
Great, thank you. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Member Dykstra, do you have any questions that you would like to ask? Is Member Dykstra still with us? My mic's muted.
Sorry, I apologize.
Member Dykstra, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Buseman, any more comments from the viewpoint of the applicant?
No, I'm good.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant before we bring in the general public? If there are no further questions, I'll ask for comments from the general public. As noted at the start of the meeting, we have not received. No, we have, haven't we? We have requests from the public to speak to this application. Before I identify the person to speak, those watching and those who wish to speak to this application, you can still do so by phoning in at 519-822-1260 extension 2524. So the delegates that we had in advance is Mr. James Dennis. Oh, we've heard him. So then we go to the second one, which is Julie Fordyce, and she's going to join us by video, I think, or we hope.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay? Can't hear him.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you identify yourself, please?
Thank you. My name is Julie Fordyce, and I'm joined with my husband, Cameron Fordyce.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Dear committee members, we are residents of 30 Forest Street, directly neighboring property to 26 Forest Street. And we are in opposition of both the application for minor variance and the application for consent new lot filed with the Committee of Adjustment. Our family, Cameron and I, purchased 34th Street and have lived here as our primary residence since 2018. And during that time, we have invested significantly in the upgrading of the property and have biannually contracted a professional arborist to maintain our trees. We have evaluated the proposed variance using the 4 tests as prescribed by Section 45 of the Planning Act, and we are opposed to the filed applications for 26 Forest Street. The following reasons. Is the proposed variance minor in nature? The proposed variance of 13 meters frontage falls well below the predominant frontage in the surrounding area. Approving a frontage of 13 meters would increase the opportunity for other severances in the area below the 15-meter frontage, inviting undesirable change to the established fabric and character of this neighborhood. In our opinion, this application is not minor. Secondly, is the variance desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure? We feel that the impact on established trees and vegetation would be significant. There's several mature trees that contribute to the aesthetic of our property and the neighborhood as a whole. And this could potentially be damaged during the construction of the proposed dwelling. Of particular concern is the Norway maple that has been mentioned and the safekeeping of this mature maple. It is on our fence line in our property, and with the current drawings is only 1.6 meters from the proposed dwelling. This maple is a predominant part of our yard and the neighborhood tree canopy. The City of Guelph Tree Technical Manual recommends a minimum of 4.8 meters.
I can correct that now, because Jeff confirmed that the measurement on the tree is actually 83 centimeters. It actually bumps the protection area for this tree, which is actually in the Guelph Tree Technical Manual, to 6 meters. So as much as, anyways, Julie can finish talking. So Jeff confirmed it's bigger than we measured it to our ability, but he's saying that it's 83 centimeters, which increases that protection zone halfway through the house.
And then there's the excavation work and shoring that would need to be done that could potentially, with best intentions in mind, could potentially damage this significant tree. There's also the loss of sunlight. There's no shade study that's been provided by the applicant or conducted that we're aware of. And given our lot configuration, the side yard of our house, the area in question is an active yard on our property. We hang out there, our kids hang out there. The proposed home will have an impact on the sun penetration into this yard. There could also be a loss in privacy for our particular yard, given the proposed positioning of the house. This is worrisome. There could be potential overlook issues, window placement, balconies, etc. Third, is the proposed variance in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The applicant is seeking a reduced lot frontage in an effort to maintain the existing dwelling on the retained parcel and jam or squeeze another dwelling in as well. There's more than enough room on that property to have two significant dwellings. There should be a valid reason why the bylaw requirement of 15 meters frontage cannot be achieved. It is not sufficient that variance would be convenient to an owner in order to justify its approval. The application and proposed dwelling are not about providing affordable housing. It's not about infill. It's self-serving. It's not desirable to the neighborhood and significantly outside the existing patterns of development. We're not opposed to development. We're not opposed to infill in our neighborhood. However, new developments should be compatible and respect the established character, which begins with parcel size. In addition, a new dwelling as positioned and defined in the application seriously jeopardize the aesthetic and quality of our property. Is the proposed variance in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan? The official plan encourages intensification and redevelopment of existing urban areas that is compatible with existing build form. The proposed variance will create a precedent that is not compatible with the surrounding existing parcel fabric and built form. Further, it's within the landowner's ability to provide the minimum 15 meters frontage as set by the zoning bylaw.
I'm Cameron Fordyce. I want to thank the committee for allowing us to speak and share, our side of this development. And as Julie mentioned, we're not anti-development. And I think, something that's really important that hasn't been brought to the table by the developer is that this property is being sold by the current owners. And the new purchaser is severing off this skinny lot, holding the principal dwelling, and they're likely going to turn that into a short-term rental property until they put in an application to tear down that residence and split it into two 11.5 meter lots. And, the question becomes, where do you stop at allowing these variances, and how narrow do you allow the lots to get? I'm very conflicted with the staff approving this application because it's the staff that set the bylaw at 15 meters for our neighborhood. And all of a sudden now they feel like, oh, 13 meters is fine. That doesn't make sense. And either it's 15 meters or it's not. And I think, I'm also offended that the staff chose to reference properties that actually aren't on the parcel of land that this new super skinny and dwelling that doesn't conform to any of the character of the established houses. So why are we talking about properties on the west end of Forest Street when what we need to talk about are the properties between Maple and Talbot, where the lot sizes are well in excess of the 15 meters that are in the bylaw, much closer to the 18 meters that are the lot sizes further down that the city staff mentioned that at Talbot Street where the property sizes change. So I think it's also important that we recognize that, I mean, that's a lovely picture that the arborist painted who's being paid by the contractor to tell you he can save this tree. This excavation work is going to go within 1 meter of this tree, and I don't care what kind of air suction they use to remove the dirt, they're going to root prune 50% of the roots off of the side of that tree. 1/4 of those will be under the garage. And then, so they're going to be pruned only to a 4-foot depth at 1 meter from a tree that's 83 centimeters in diameter at breast height. And then the remainder of the roots that are in the back quarter are going to be pruned to the full depth of the foundation. And within 1 meter of the tree, there's no way they can get around that. It doesn't matter how kind they are to digging down and removing the dirt gently. The truth is the foundation's going there and the root has to be cut at the foundation wall. And, you know, it's lovely to think that with 50% of the roots removed, that they think they can save the tree. But I guess, is the city liable for the damage caused by a 60, 70 foot tall tree falling after the roots are removed off of one side of it because they allow a contractor to come in and remove half of the roots? I mean, the tree is going to fall over the next major windstorm after that happens or die. When it lands on my house or my kids or even this new house, you know, and I really, it's great that the planner Jeff is talking about, you know, the provincial guidelines of affordable housing, but there's no way they're going to sell this house for less than $2 million. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really think that's affordable housing. So the next question we have as the people right beside it is, they've only shown 1 floor of the house. In our neighborhood, we know the zoning can go to 3 floors. And given the planners saying that they think that, oh, the aesthetic is fine and the character is fine, and they've already compromised, you know, their previous, you know, professional opinions that are written down in the city bylaws by approving this, how high is this house going to go? Is it going to go 3 stories? And if it does, we're going to have a very narrow 3-foot, you know, a 3-story house that's going 72 feet deep, which is unlike any other house in the neighborhood. So it is going to have a major impact on the residents around it. So as much as, you know, the developer wants to pretend like this is just not in my backyard syndrome, I think that the city and their forward tests and the you know, proper use of this property, by no means is this the best use of it. And they really, I guess, one thing we think they should consider is if they do grant this severance on this parcel of land, that they put a restriction on the retained parcel of land and not allow future development on it for a minimum of 10 years. And this is something that, you know, municipalities like Puslinch often do with farmland in order to prevent future development on farms. And it's something that the city could consider here, because what we want to prevent is also the continued severance of the remaining parcel at 26 Forest.
Mr. Fortis, you have exceeded your time limit. I have to
Okay.
give the committee opportunity.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Does the committee have any questions that they wish to direct to this delegation? Member Smith.
Sorry, my mute button wasn't working. Chair, I just have a process question, and that is, I do have questions that have been raised by the neighbor for staff, and I'm wondering if there are any other delegations, if I should wait and ask that at the end of the delegations.
I think that we should keep member or questions for staff until we hear all the delegations. We've got 2 more that we're aware of, and then any that have phoned in. So if we let all the delegations on the other side speak, and then we can have Mr. Buseman make his comments, and then we can direct any questions as well, if the committee's in favor of that process.
I'm in favor with that. I just wanted to be clear. I don't have any questions for the neighbors. They've made their point, and the question I was going to ask them, they answered. So I'm good.
Okay, no other questions for this delegation will proceed to the next if I don't see any hands. I don't see any hands. Just a minute. Steve, Stephen, are you okay?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Give me a minute then. So the next delegation that we're expecting would be Stephen Sikora, and he is phoning in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you now. You can hear me too. I'm having trouble muting and unmuting.
Yeah, it's an interesting process because I also noticed there's a delay between the video and the audio. When I was listening to my phone, we were off sync by about a minute, so it was kind of difficult.
Oh,
Anyway,
I was not aware. Please state your name, and you have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation.
thank you very much. My name is Stephen Sikora. I live at 144 Maple Street. You don't see it so much on the drawing that came from Mr. Buisman, but if you look at the picture, let's say the last overhead picture of Mr. Milligan's presentation, you can see my house in the bottom corner. The new lot would back entirely onto my property. Now, my concerns are a little different, and I first want to say that we do not appreciate Mr. Buisman simply dismissing the concerns of neighborhood residents, people that live here, people who have an investment here, people who have been here in many cases for decades, as nothing more than NIMBY. We live here, we know the neighborhood, we see what's going on around us, and we do agree that there has been some good redevelopment. Some properties have come down. Mr. Buisman mentioned the corner of Talbot and Dean. That was a property that was subdivided into two within the zoning limit of 15 meters. And there's two lovely houses there. And we're also aware of Mezcon's work. We've seen some of the buildings they've done in the neighborhood, and they've done a good job. They're attractive buildings. They've added to the neighborhood. My main concern here is not sight lines, trees, the effect on me necessarily. My main concern is that, as has already been said, and unfortunately I do have to repeat a little bit of it, we have a bylaw that says 15 meters. And city staff is willing to just throw that away without considering the alternatives. And as I pointed out in my written submissions, whenever you want to go against the bylaws, you have to look at not only is it expedient, financially rewarding, easy, you have to look at, are there alternatives that could mitigate any concerns of the neighborhood? And in this case, there's one obvious alternative. The existing lot is 35.9 meters wide, more than sufficient to split into two reasonably sized lots. But instead, the developer is choosing to hive off one skinny lot, and we don't know what they'll do with the rest of it. But I have some ideas. It's been suggested that it might be turned into rental housing. You might say to yourself, why would that be? It's a lovely house. Why would it come down? But what Mr. Buisman is not telling you is that relatively few weeks ago, an oil tank was removed from underneath the garage of that house, and there is oil contamination in the soil. And that is why that property was never listed on MLS. And that is why they want to do the deal where they'll take the existing house if and only if they can sever off this lot to make it financially viable. Instead, what should properly be happening is the house come down, the land reclaimed, the contamination removed, and then two properly sized lots separated and houses built. That's what ultimately should happen here. So the question really is to the applicant, and it's a question that the members should ask the applicant. Why are you doing it this way? Why haven't you considered the alternatives? Mezcon is buying the whole thing. Why are you severing this lot off now? What are your intentions? And I think it goes to the sincerity of the application. The applicants, through their agent, have told you all kinds of good reasons why that should be there. And the city staff has gone along with it in the name of intensification and the objectives that we want to do as a society there. But we can have intensification of that property and eliminate any contamination on the property at the same time and do it the right way. So intensification, yes. Taking a shortcut, no. Let's do it the right way. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Committee members, do you have any questions for the delegate? Member Dijkstra, are you okay?
Yeah, I don't have any follow-up questions for the resident.
Okay, we have no video connection with Mr. Dijkstra. If you are just joining us, we can only commute through the audio side. No other questions for this delegation. The fourth delegation that has been booked is John Milligan, who is to join us via video. Is Mr. Milligan available? Yes. You have to turn your mic on, Mr. Milligan. There you go. I can see you.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please state your name for the record and your address.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. My name is John Milligan. I'm joined here by my wife, Arlene Hills. We are residents of Talbot Street. Our property abuts the rear yard space of 26 Forest Street. My wife and I, Arlene, submitted a letter of opposition to the current applications because we believe the approval and implementation of the intended variance and development plans will add unnecessary stress to and negatively affect the long-term vitality of our neighborhood green space. First, let me be clear. We agree that new building construction and residential updates can be beneficial to our area. However, the development must be sensitive to the current residents and to the urban forest. It must also be compatible to current zoning requirements, dwelling layouts and designs, and characteristics of the surrounding neighborhood. I'm hoping each of the committee members have received a copy of an aerial overview photograph rendering, which I submitted for your review in advance of this meeting. And I'm hoping as well that you've also had a chance to review the letter that my wife and I submitted outlining the reasons why we are opposing these applications. While I can underline certain aspects as to why we would be personally inconvenienced in one way or another, I'm not going to touch upon that. Instead, I'd like us for a moment to take a step back and simply look at the proposed property in relation to neighborhood green space from an aerial perspective. You will notice in looking at the aerial perspective pictures I've sent to you, you'll notice that the proposed lot size in proportion to the suggested dwelling size and its positioning are incompatible with the surrounding area. This will have a detrimental impact on the existing character and diminish the quality of life of our neighborhood. The site lot is excessively narrow in scope. We've talked about that. This results in a proposed dwelling design which is unusually long and horizontal in depth. And I underline the word depth because it's in relation to the surrounding homes. Allowing the proposed dwelling to extend to the purpose 72.5-foot depth would be intrusive to the rear yard spaces of all the adjacent lots. This is equivalent to a 7-story building laying down. Understandably, this layout would disrupt privacy, obstruct natural green space and horizon sightlines, and destabilize the established ecosystem, history, and physical character of our neighborhood. Further, the proposed dwelling size is excessive in relation to the lot size, which is not harmonious to the square or horizontal positioning, which is more common of the older original homes on surrounding lots. The square or horizontal positioning of homes within the current neighborhood affords all area homeowners expansive rear yard space that is conducive to inviting and sustaining a healthy wildlife habitat and preserving large trees, privacy, and beautiful green space. This considered, this variance cannot be regarded as low impact or minor, and if approved, would give precedence for higher intensification, where large homes will continue to be overbuilt on smaller lots, with little regard to preserving the surrounding ecosystem and urban forest. We know the city is committed to preserving green space while promoting the growth of a stable and sustainable urban tree canopy. As such, the negative and disruptive impacts to the existing Old University neighborhood urban forest within these applications must be taken into consideration. Allowing this level of intensification that does not preserve the neighborhood yard green space and wildlife habitat runs contrary to the goals which are outlined in the City of Guelph Urban Forest Management Plan and the more recent urban forest study. We cannot overstate the importance of the established urban forest and tree canopy, which are vital aspects of our Old University neighborhood. Guelph's urban forest provides a wide range of benefits that contribute to a livable and sustainable community. Trees are considered green infrastructure in the city. They cool our homes, beautify our parks. They provide wildlife habitat, increase our property values, and contribute to walkable neighborhoods. In 2012, the city approved Guelph's 20-year strategic urban forest management plan with the goal of increasing our canopy cover to 40% by the year 2031. This is as set out in the Guelph's official city plan. Since its inception, the city has made significant progress in building the foundations of a comprehensive urban forestry program. And along the way, key stakeholders have come together across all areas to achieve some key milestones, many of which we can all be proud of, including Guelph being recognized in 2019 as a tree city of the world, which celebrates cities for the care and planning they put into our urban forests. In 2019, the city undertook an urban forest study and report. The study revealed that the urban forest canopy cover in Guelph currently sits at 23.3% and is in good condition. However, it also revealed that 53% of Guelph's total tree population is located on private property, while the remaining 47% are on public land. This means that Guelph residents and business owners have a very important role to play in protecting and growing our urban forest. The 2019 report underlined the need for collaboration to grow our urban forest. It did so in four areas. Identify options for improving the preservation of quality growing space in new residential and non-residential development. 2, ensure all future growing space designated for trees in new residential and non-residential development is high quality, including sufficient soil volume, quality, and crown space to support long-term growth. 3, identify and implement best practices in zoning and urban design that maximizes the quality growing space on both public and private lands. 4, use the results of the canopy cover and plantable space analysis to develop canopy cover targets for implementation at the project or site level. That's key. Integrate targets into Guelph policies, bylaws, or built form guidelines or other guiding documents as appropriate. We know managing trees and forests in an urban setting is already inherently difficult, especially in an urbanized area like Guelph that is expanding, while we are also attempting to protect and increase the extent of our urban canopy cover. Most challenges are due to increasing conflicting community growth priorities, and these cannot be resolved without significant balancing of these priorities, good planning, coordination, and collaboration across the city and the community stakeholders. Guelph's urban forest is vulnerable and under threat from climate change, extreme weather events, pests, diseases, and pressure from development and urbanization. In January 2020, an online survey was conducted by the City of Guelph using Guelph's Have Your Say online community engagement site. It found that most respondents are aware of the urban forest management plan and agree with the vision. It also revealed something else. It revealed that respondents believe deeply that the city needs to do more to meet the vision of the urban forest plan. Only 7% of all respondents strongly feel that we are meeting the vision, with most specifically saying that we need to plant more trees and protect and preserve our trees and woodlands. All of these factors have a significant impact on the health of the urban forest and the City of Guelph's ability to achieve a 40% canopy cover target by the year 2031. This emphasizes the need for a collaborative approach with shared goals to protect and grow our urban forest. In closing, we only have one opportunity to get this right. As such, we ask that we consider this application in the context of its high intensification relative to its long depth urban lot size, and in the broader context of our neighboring properties and the surrounding urban forest. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for the delegation? Any hands? Member Dijkstra?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Member Allison, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, through you to the delegation. I'm taking it that you are in receipt of the conditions, this application coming from the committee?
We did receive the application, correct?
Right, and one of the conditions that planning has put forth is that the applicant is to submit a tree inventory and preservation plan prior to the issuance of a building permit. And did this, and that is not, you don't feel that satisfactory?
I don't believe it's satisfactory because it doesn't, I think again, when we look at the overall map of the city or of the area, and we look at the context in which that very, very narrow lot is so unusual relative to the surrounding area, and the overall sheer size and depth of that building. And we also need to consider too, that in the future, there could be future applications that ask for additional amenities to be put into the backyard green space, including maybe bunkies, a pool, basically hard concrete or paving over the existing green space even further. What we're looking at is a lot application that's really going to intensify non-available green space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the delegation? There being none, before moving into debate and discussion, we'll take a 3-minute break. So any members of the public watching from home who wish to speak to this application can call in. I'd ask that all hearing participants ensure that your microphones are muted during the break.
Chair Kendrick, we do have one phone delegation. The individual's name is Christine Jelinka, and she's present via phone.
Christine, are you present?
I am.
Welcome to Committee of Adjustment. You have up to 10 minutes to make a statement to the committee.
Okay, I am Christine Jelichka. I live in the dwelling immediately across from this, so 124 Maple. Our house is L-shaped along Maple and Forest. Our driveway would essentially back into this future driveway. I have sent a letter. I live with my mother-in-law and my kids and my husband. We're multi-generational. And I had thought my letter sort of was the way I was going to communicate my feelings about this change in the neighborhood. But when I heard the delegate for the builder make his presentation, I had to call in. I was angry at the fact that he thought this was about not in my backyard. This is most certainly not that. We live in a neighborhood of students, of families, and of elderly. And the reason we want to live there is because of those things. This property is special. It's very special. And it is not something that should be paved over and put the biggest house possible. If this was about a severance of 13 meters versus 15 meters, that on a lot that just needed infill, like the one down the hill that Mezcon built, and it's a huge building filling an old parking lot, I wouldn't be calling you. The reason that this property is special is it's green. And to live downtown and have so much green space, garden space, and to approve this where they have no intention of taking advantage of that. This is not about infill. This is about a developer in a market of multi-million-dollar homes. This would be a multi-million-dollar home on a small lot, not taking advantage of anything that's special about Maple and Forest. One of the comments was he could see this as being a bigger variance if you were putting in townhomes and a collection of townhomes. I think that would be a better use of this space than what is being proposed. Having 5 cars but a single driveway and using the depth of the property and keeping the green and having it low build, low height, that is ingenious. That is thoughtful development. This is taking advantage of a high market and frankly, not even taking advantage of taxable income to the city when you have 13 meters and a multi-million-dollar home. I have a lot of taxes and a lot of house, but the way we take advantage of it is we're a multi-generational home with tons of garden space. So I'm angry at his comments and that it's about that. This property should be treated as though it's special. There is in-ground heating under this current lot, which no one's talking about, that'll be dug up, which is affecting the current dwelling. There is no intention of that current dwelling being left as is. No intention of the applicant to live and value our neighborhood. This is 100% a value proposition for profit. That's my comment.
Thank you for taking the time to share your comments with the committee. Committee members, do you have any questions for the delegation? I see no questions. Just a minute. Stephen, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, do we have any other delegations? Okay, there being no further delegations. Just a minute now, we go over here. We'll give Mr. Buseman an opportunity to respond to the comments if he is so inclined. Mr. Buseman, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm assuming you can hear me?
I can.
Okay. I've got an update from Zach about the oil tank. He said that the oil tank, was an oil tank in the garage. It was removed by the existing owner. The tank was under the floor in the garage. The owner has hired an engineer to deal with how to deal with the contamination. Zach has informed me that once he has full ownership of this property, he will be using a hydrovac to do the appropriate cleanup in accordance with the engineering instructions. So I'd say he's doing a good thing in dealing with the cleanup of that soil. Also, Zach has informed me that his intention is to fix up the existing house, renovate it, and then sell it as a house. So if there's any rental, it's only going to be temporary while this project proceeds forward. Yes, this project is an intensification project and is the type of intensification that the planning policies are all about. We also did dialogue with city staff prior to an application. We talked about different ideas, maybe knocking down that house, making in more lots than it is. Feedback from staff was more compatible would be what we were proposed. And that is to keep the existing house and to have this infill opportunity. Staff felt that this was the better way of doing it. I did not want to mislead anybody to suggest that this house was affordable. I was only referring to the ministry report on housing, and it will be worth a lot of money, this house, as any new house in the university neighborhood is. But the push in that report is to have many kinds of housing available in all neighborhoods, and that's important. The other comment I wanted to make was that this new house will fill the lot. There'll be 1.6 meter side yards. The front yard will be 11 meters, which is much bigger than the zoning. The zoning is something like 6 meters. We're only proposing 11 meters, so it'd be in line with the abutting house, which is more design appropriate. The depth of the house, that has not been finalized. It could be less, but the rear yard setback is quite large, relatively speaking, to the zoning bylaw, minimum of 7.5 meters. If you look at any of those other successful infill developments, those houses have filled the lot pretty significantly. If anything, this lot has the advantage of providing for or keeping more rear yard space than a number of the other projects. And that's the advantage of this lot being rather deep. I go back to city staff's comments to say that this fits, this is compatible, and this is appropriate development, and also that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. I hope that addresses the questions. I'd be open to any more questions that committee members might have.
Thank you, Mr. Buseman. Member Smith, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, the neighbor at number 30 had raised the issue of the impact of the tree, and I just want to circle back on that. And I know we heard from the arborist, but this is more a construction sort of thing. I wonder if the possibility of a grade beam, and that's construction, it's not really what we're here about, but I just thought I'd raise it. The idea of a grade beam that might less impact the tree. I'm just going to put that out there.
Chair, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please.
I know we've been talking about that idea and we're still exploring it. The house engineering people are giving feedback to Zach that that kind of construction has some challenges with the piles that would be put in the ground. The piles is like a column, if you will. steel columns, and just concern about steel being in the ground for a long time. After 20 years, 30 years, is that steel going to rot? So there's some structural questions about that type of technology, but it is being considered.
Thank you.
Member
I
Smith?
do have some, yeah, I do have some other questions that have been raised by some of the neighbors. So bear with me a second while I look at my notes.
Who would you address the question to? Mr.
First,
Boozman?
I think with Mr. Boozman, he's answered my question about rear yard setback and subdividing the retained lot. I'm wondering about shading. My read of the plan doesn't really look like there'd be any shading impact, but I wonder if he could speak to that.
We haven't looked at the shading analysis on any infill project. Has never been required. So we haven't done that. I mean, I don't, as you're saying, I mean, it's only us as lay people looking at this to say, will there be an impact or not? But Zach has just emailed me to say too that he will look closer at this grade beam idea.
Thank you. And I guess to your arborist, if he's still available, the first presentation by the neighbors at number 30 had raised some issues about the tree protection zone, and I don't know if that is within his purview or if staff can address that.
Anybody at your end, Mr. Boozman, can address it, or staff? Mr. Boozman?
I can't any more than I don't know those guidelines. I don't know if James is still online.
Still here.
Okay, go ahead,
Yes.
James.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Mr. Daniels. Mr.
Yes.
Dennis, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the minimum tree protection zones have been a guideline for the city development engineering standards since they've had standards, essentially. The tree technical manual was published in 2019, and it follows the previous recommendations for tree protection zones. And essentially what it is based on the diameter of the tree. It's a guideline for excavation and other work where it's generally recommended not to have that happen. And so, but it's not an imperative. So the concerns from the residents at 30 Forest Street are valid. And what I will say is that in my experience, we have, again, having done a lot of, support a lot of projects within the city of Guelph, boundary trees and offsite trees, respecting their root zones and their protection zones has to be basically a case-by-case basis. The approach that we've advocated and tried to describe is essentially understanding the conditions prior to committing to any irreversible action. So the air spade, air vac is essentially an information gathering exercise within the tree protection zone along the proposed limit of excavation, so that we are working within the TPZ, but are not committed to damaging the tree until we actually see what's there. And I will say, in my experience, the tree protection zone is a good guideline, but it's not a hard rule that excavation in that area is going to cause damage. So that's why excavating with the air spade with a non-invasive, very low impact tool is the best way to ascertain the real impacts that are going to happen. So just to summarize, the tree protection zone is a guideline. It gives us fair warning that bad things could happen to trees when you cut roots there, and you need to really reconsider or consider alternative approaches. And that's what we're going to do.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
understand that.
I do have a couple of follow-ups.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
The tree's been identified as a Norway maple, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And through you, Chair, to Mr. Dennis, what's the lifespan of those? About 125, 150 years?
Yes. Lifespans are kind of a little squishy, if I can say that, because you can have a live tree that's shedding branches for the last 50 years of its life, and that's not something anybody in an urban environment really desires. However, I think that this tree has lived a long life relative to other Norway maples I've seen. It does have some of the structural and form issues that plague other Norway maples. However, it's also shown great resolve and resilience to those issues. It's mainly poor crown structure and girdling roots. There is evidence of girdling roots on that tree, and there is evidence of poor crown architecture in that it has a split that is healing. So I'm just saying this as an observer. I don't want to condemn the tree. I definitely feel that it's still vital. It's worth protecting and saving. And whether it's been there 100 years and it has 50 more years left, I think if we can get those 50 years out of it, it's going to provide enormous benefits to the urban forest because big trees are hard to find and hard to grow. So yeah, I mean, the age is a good question, but I think it also kind of touches on a lot of different points about arboriculture that we could discuss in length. But yeah, anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Mr. Member Smith, you've
Okay.
got further questions?
I just have one other, and that since this is a boundary tree, I think it deserves a little bit of time to consider. And it has to do with the ongoing of the tree going forward. Is that something that the proponent is going to undertake?
You're breaking up. We've lost Member Smith.
Can you hear me at all? No.
Yep, you're back now. I can't really see you. Did you turn off video? Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Can you hear me? Am I here?
Yes.
Okay. My question was, since this is a boundary tree and it's the proponent who's going to be impacting this, I'm wondering if future care of this tree is something that the proponent is going to be considering.
This is Jeff Buseman. If I can answer that, this is very clear. It's important to this team, to MESCON and to James Dennis. So the care will be given to this tree with advice on how to keep it healthy and strong. You know, eventually, after a house is built, a new owner will be living there. So, you know, you'll encourage the new owner to take care of this tree as well. I have a feeling they would appreciate that tree just as much as anybody in the neighborhood.
Thank you. I've taken enough time. Appreciate it.
I understand that staff engineering has a comment that they wish to make.
For you, Chair, that's correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Daniel.
Because of this oil tank that's been revealed at the meeting, we would like to just add another condition. That would be that prior to issuance of certificate of official.
We've lost you, Mr. Daniel.
Sorry, can you hear me? That prior to issuance of certificate of official, that the owner agrees to provide us with a phase 1 ESA.
Okay. That's the extent of the additional condition?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Just a minute, I'm going to ask Mr. Dykstra, are you okay? You got any questions?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Members of the committee, any further questions? Member Meads?
Yeah, through the chair, just to Mr. Buseman, just make sure you're okay with that condition.
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay. Any other phone in? No other phone ins? No other questions? Okay, then. We're going to now begin to discuss the application and make a decision. Committee members, do you wish to make a motion? And if so, please raise your hand.
I'll raise my voice if that's okay.
Okay, that's okay. Stephen,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I move for approval of the consent and the minor variance applications with the added condition that was just recommended by our engineering group.
Okay, and we have a seconder. Member Meads, you have a comment? Oh, you're seconding? Yes, yes, I understand now. Member Meads is seconding the motion. Member Smith.
Chair, I've struggled a little with this. Based on the volume of my questions, maybe that's apparent, and I don't know if you've lost me or not.
No, you're okay.
Okay. As I say, I've struggled a little with this, but the presentation from both the neighbors and the proponent have been very helpful. I think given the 4 tests that this is in fact minor in nature, and so I will be supporting this motion.
Any other comments or discussion before we vote? All right, we have a motion moved and seconded to approve the application with the conditions. We'll proceed with the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Committee members, please indicate your vote by responding in favor or opposed to the motion, which is to approve the consent and minor variance applications subject to the recommended conditions as well as the additional condition recommended by engineering staff. Chair Kendrick.
In favor.
Member Allison.
In favor.
Member Dykstra.
In favor.
Member Hamilton.
In favor.
Member Meads.
In favor.
And Member Smith.
In favor.
That's unanimous, Chair.
I'm talking away, but you can't hear me. The motion has been approved by the committee. The application's been approved. Thank you, Mr. Buseman, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We'll go to the next item on the agenda. If you would, please. That's to you.
Thank you, Chair. The next application and the final applications are file B-7/22 and A-10/22. consent for lot addition and related variance for reduced lot area for proposed retained lot at 80 Nottingham Street. I'll also note for the committee members as well as those attending that we did receive photos from the applicant indicating that the shed has been removed, and those photos have been circulated to committee members, staff, and staff as well.
Are there representative present?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. It's Nancy Shoemaker.
Ms. Shoemaker, good afternoon. I have a couple of questions for you. Was the sign posted as per the Planning Act requirement?
Yes, it was.
Did you receive staff comments, and are you in agreement with the recommended conditions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we received the comments. We're in agreement with the conditions, and as Trista just mentioned, the one major condition, the shed, has now been removed, and city staff have seen to that removal. And we're looking, this is fairly minor. We're not quite sure why this small rectangular piece of land was never with the Fountain Street property, and we're just trying to correct that at this time.
Okay, do you have any presentation that you wish to make, or was that it?
That was it.
Okay, questions for the applicant from the committee members? I don't see any hands whatsoever. Okay. Is there anybody? There's nobody that we're aware of that's opposed, so we'll go to the 3-minute break and invite members of the public to phone in if they have any comments on this application.
Chair Kendrick, I can confirm we didn't get any call-in delegation requests.
Okay. The committee will now begin to discuss the application and make a decision. Committee members, you wish to make a motion? If so, please raise your hand. Member Smith.
I'd like to move acceptance with the listed conditions, Chair.
A seconder for the motion. Member Hamilton. Any discussion? There being no discussion, can we please have the Secretary Treasurer conduct the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Committee members, please indicate your vote by responding in favor or opposed to the motion, which is to approve both applications with the recommended conditions. Chair Kendrick,
In favor.
Member Allison,
In favor?
Member Dykstra,
In favor.
Member Hamilton,
In favor.
Member Meads,
In favor.
and Member Smith.
In favor.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, that was carried. For the applicant, I remind you that you are free to leave the meeting if you wish. Reminder to those watching, if you wish to receive a copy of the decision on an application, including information about the appeal procedure, you must submit a written request by emailing Committee of Adjustment at guelph.ca with your name and the file number you are interested in. Please note that owners and applicants automatically receive a copy of the decision. And I think that's everything that we have on the agenda. The Secretary Treasurer has some announcements.
Thank you, Chair. Due to a member resignation, we will have a committee vacancy effective the next hearing. As the current term of the committee is finishing at the end of the year, the vacancy will be filled as part of the recruitment for the 2022 to 2026 Committee of Adjustment term. And as this is Member Ash's last hearing as part of the committee, unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us tonight, but I did want to take an opportunity for us all to take a moment to recognize her for her dedication to the committee over the past 8 years, as well as your leadership on as committee chair for 3 years and as vice chair for 4 years. So unfortunately, like I said, Member Ash isn't available tonight, but I did want to thank her for being a valued member of the committee, and I hope she found her time on the committee to be rewarding. And I think I can speak on behalf of other members of the committee that I think we've all enjoyed working with her. So I just wanted to say that.
And I think all the members of the committee would want to thank her for her dedication and her expertise over the years to the Committee of Adjustment. Can I get members, please, to move and second an adjournment hearing? Moved by Member Smith. Seconded by Member Allison. All those in favor of adjourning, please raise their hands. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Carried. See you next month.